Ladies and gentlemen, at the time that I am recording this video, Magnus Carlsen is the best chess player in the world. And as the best chess player, you might imagine he has played hundreds of thousands of chess games, if not crossing into the 1 million territory. That might sound unfathomable, but it's true. Multiple decades of online and offline play lead to such a number. But just yesterday, he definitively said he might have just played the best and most enjoyable game that he has ever played. And I'm going to show it to you today. It was against a young grandmaster from Iran. Magnus is currently participating in the 2025-2026 Esports World Cup circuit. He's playing online blitz games. And he played one of the best and most enjoyable games. So I'm going to show it to you. Also, I'll show you 4 more games, including against Hikaru and other strong grandmasters. You see, Magnus has been on a little bit of a mission where he is destroying everybody. Yesterday, he got 10.5 points out of 11. That is a really terrible score. He should have gotten 11 out of 11. And recently in this tournament, he is 20 and a half out of 24. 22, sorry. 20 and a half out of 22, which is, of course, terrible. He has 1 loss in 22 games. Now, his opponent, Sina Movahed, d4, knight f6. How can you possibly be Magnus Carlsen and say at the ripe age of whatever, 34, 35, whatever he is, that this is the best and most enjoyable game that you have played? Knight to c3, bishop g7, e4, d6, and we have what is known as the King's Indian defense. This is an exceptional opening. And it is an opening you can enjoy as a beginner, but it is an opening that if you enjoy as a grandmaster, you enjoy it on a whole nother level, all right? Black now, chooses a little bit of a cagey approach, 6th rank, and then will use one of these pawns to lash out at White's very big center. Sometimes the knight will rotate this way or back, and then Black will launch an attack on White. White will oftentimes launch a counterattack on one of the 2 sides of the board, and the position leads to very complex play. So this is the most common move in the position. This is the most common move in the position. You don't want to take, you actually ignore it, wait for this knight to come and put more pressure, then you kick away the knight, and in this position, b4 is played. This is known as the bayonet attack. You don't have to know any of this, but if you would like to impress, your next date on Hinge, you can tell them and quiz them about the bayonet attack and who popularized this. Historically, they were moving the knight back to the e1 square. So b4. The point is that White wants to get going with an attack before Black gets going with an attack of his own. More often than not, people are going backwards now. Sina plays the move knight h5. For the record, Sina is an Iranian grandmaster who is something like 15, 16 years old, maybe slightly older, but a teenager, more than half of Magnus's age, I think. Sina might be like 25. But the thing is, nowadays, all these youngsters are coming up and out of nowhere, they're like 14 or 20, and you actually just don't know. So the idea is to play f5. The idea is to play knight to f4. Magnus plays this move rook e1. This is a very deep move. This move looks like it does absolutely nothing. But the point is to give the bishop a getaway square to f1 when this knight arrives. And now this knight is kind of clumsy. You really want Magnus to take the knight. He's not going to, though. He's not going to help Black. And Sina plays the move f5. Now, here's the amazing thing about this position. I mean, it really looks like Black is knocking on the door over here, right? The loan sharks have arrived in the Mafia movie. It's time to pay up. No, we just make a getaway on the opposite side of the board. This is actually the best move. So it's so crazy to me that you can just push a pawn on the complete opposite side of the board, not meet the demands of the right side, and just be like, yeah, because in the future, I'm going to advance my pawns over here and crash through on that side of the board. Actually, it is Magnus putting pressure on his opponent to do something in the position, who plays h6. And you're just trying to, again, get more support for the pawn attack. Now Magnus plays rook a3. Rook a3 is ridiculous. Now, the move rook a3 is on such another level of chess. Rook a3 does 2 things. It gets off of this diagonal, and this knight is now protected. Right? You're not actually ever going to be pinned. If there is a world in which the rook ends up attacking Black on this side of the board, I will lose my mind. That would be way too deep of an idea. Sina plays g5. Magnus now kicks out the knight. It's time for the knight to go. Cena knows that he can't take a step backwards against Magnus. That knight is there to die. Pawn takes e4, opening up the knight, the bishop, and the rook for the future. The knight here will be like a Trojan horse. If Magnus chooses to accept it, it could be a problem. Knight takes g5. Oh my goodness, we are getting real weird with it now. There was an argument to be made that this knight could take, but then this knight could actually slide out of there. So Magnus sacrifices his own knight first, and then he takes this knight, and now we get this position. And so from the opening, we have reached this weird little situation where for a moment, it looks like black actually has no attack anymore. Magnus has blockaded, and ladies and gentlemen, may I present to you the rook that is actually going to rotate to the other side of the board. How on earth did this crazy man know that when he played rook a3 in just a few moves, we would be here? Nuts. Cena plays knight to g6. Now white can continue with c5, with b5, etc. He goes queen h5, very natural move, attacking the knight and getting the queen a little bit closer over here. Knight to h4. And if I asked you to guess white's best move here, if any of you watching this on a phone, computer, smart TV will be easier to see, so you might as well look at the TV right now. Look at this board, okay? White is much better according to the computer, but that doesn't tell the whole story. What does white play here? Let me ask you a question. How would you attack black in this position? Some of you might go knight g5. Knight g5 is a nice idea in theory if your opponent is stupid. And again, at like 700 level, you play knight g5, you go, well, maybe they won't see it. That's like 70% of chess. Knight g5 is, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work for several reasons, but it just doesn't work. They're not going to let you checkmate them. Another move is king h1 with ideas to maybe put the rook here in the future. Another idea, bishop h3. You trade the bishop, you bring the rook. Or you could sacrifice the rook. What? Rook h3, giving away the entire rook. Because after this trade happens, nobody can stop the bishop arriving on the e6 square. Magnus Carlsen played rook to a3, rook to h3, and he didn't even trade the bishop. He gave away the rook because this bishop is going to be so powerful. Cena plays defense now, counter-sacrificing a rook for defense. Magnus doesn't take it, understanding that this rook desperately would like to be captured. Maybe he'll take it, but not right away. King h1, let's bring another rook to the party. Cena fighting back, and now white would have won the game with queen h7 and queen g8 with simultaneous ideas against this knight. So queen h7, queen e8, trying to run the king away, and then you would take the knight. It's blitz, though. Mistakes happen. Rook g1, and suddenly the advantage for white is kind of gone. There is mate. Cena doesn't blunder it, but he has to give away the knight. Here comes the queen with the counterplay. Now, the best move here for Magnus would have been knight to g3. He goes like this and gives away the knight, and the position is back to equal. Both guys are losing all their pieces along the way. These pawns are all going to collapse. By the way, that's a fork. And at this point, Magnus was like, I think I'm playing one of the most complicated and interesting games I've ever played. Like, he is really enjoying himself. Queen to h5. It's like Novak Djokovic says. He just likes hitting the ball. That is what makes tennis so, so special to him. And in Magnus's case, I think he just really loves chess. Check. The wrong check. Queen c4 was required here. And then there was a sequence where the king would run out to the g4 square and maybe the f5 square, and apparently it's a draw. Cena goes the wrong way, thinking that this is a draw, but now you run around with the king a little bit, and the bishop sacrifices itself. Because this is mate. You see, black has to keep checking because this is a checkmate. And instead what happens is you run out of checks. There are no more checks. Queen f7 is mate, and Cena in this position resigned because his king is just simply hunted down. He played this game with no rook. Only Magnus Carlsen can make it so that his 3100 rated opponent ended up playing the game without a rook. And as a little bonus here, this was the sequence. Queen c4, king g2, queen e4, king h3, queen d3, right? And then the king could run out. And then if you play something like f3, queen g2, king f5, there's this, and the king is stuck. So Cena had to find that sequence. He ends up losing. He ends up not finding it. And I got more games for you. All right, I got a game against Hikaru. I got a game against Grischuk. And as always, those of you that have watched my videos, I cover Magnus Carlsen a lot. To be fair, I haven't covered him in 3 weeks. It's been 3 weeks since Magnus video. But every time he wins, every time he pulls something off, the way he beats everybody is just incredible. Like, that game was crazy. This game, he just plays a London. He's playing Hikaru, he just plays a London. Let's see how the best player in the world handles the London, okay? D5, E3, C5, C3. Some of you London players have had this position like 100 times in your games. Pawn takes D4, he takes like this, all normal, right? Knight to H5, bishop E3. So he gets out of the way of Hikaru trying to get his bishop. Okay, all of this is normal. This has been played before. Bishop D6, here. And now he trades this bishop because he already has a lot of dark square presence, dark squared pawns. This bishop, obviously, in the long run, would like to survive. Castles, bishop D7, rook E1. So, Magnus has a square to operate. He has an open file. He has a queenside majority. He is now going to try to positionally grind down Hikaru castles. Queen E2. Talked about this move already. Hikaru gets out. Rook D1. Centralizing the pieces. Knight B3. We're looking for the move Knight C5. It's probably natural for Hikaru to play the move B6. We have bishop D6. Now we have the move Knight E5. And in these positions in the London, you do get kingside attack opportunities. Rook E8. Now F4. Magnus cementing the knight on the E5 square. And a major question is, will Hikaru play the move F6? F6 now might run into some kingside attack with Queen H5 ideas always brewing. You could also take the bishop. Magnus does, in fact, take the bishop and then plays Queen F3. So now Black no longer has the bishop pair, and White in the long run could just simply apply pressure. If Black is able to pull off the move E5, he will be fine. If Black is unable to pull off the move E5, he will suffer for a very long time. Hikaru goes Queen C7, Queen H3 threatening checkmate, basically. A major king hunt. F5 would have been really nasty, sacrificing a pawn, but we have Queen H3, F5 now, and G3. And now that pawn is a huge problem for Black. Black would love to get this knight here. So Knight E7, Knight G8, like Black could have an idea here, king here, or knight here, wrap around, get the knight to E4, and get that knight to E5 while White tries to double. So, Rook E2, Rook E1, right? Very natural, very easy play. Queen D7, Knight D2, I already talked about it. Doubling and trying to put the knight on E5 or on G5. Hikaru's kind of a step behind here. He does, in fact, meet the knight, but King H1, like, the fact that if you plug this position into the computer, here it literally tells you that the best move is King H1. I can't even begin to explain this to you. Though basically the way that I think this can be explained is because Black is under so much pressure, this is under pressure, that's under pressure, this is always an idea. There's always kind of like the straw that breaks the camel's back. And in this particular case, that straw might be the G-file. You might go King H1 and load up the cannons over here, and it's just always a lurking idea. And so now with G4, Black just can't defend himself. G6, G5, the rook basically gets trapped. So Hikaru has to go here, and now Magnus is attacking the E-file, this G-file, H7, and the threats are overwhelming. F5, absolute bludgeoning here. Pawn takes on E6, knight to G5, bishop takes H7, and he's just going to pick up some material and win the game in style with 3 extra pawns. So he has a rook and 3 pawns for 2 pieces. It's a 2-point material advantage, but it's much worse than that. He just trades the queen, surgically carving up the position. There's the check. You will block, or you will just do this. This game against Hikaru, I'm plugging it into game review. Just a flawless game. I mean, like, over 90%. I don't know why the computer's only giving 91. Like, I straight up have no idea. Sometimes game review is just really brutal. But as far as I'm concerned, that was just an absolutely flawless game that was played. Hikaru's 33-76. Magnus won that game effortlessly. Now, Grischuk, all right? Alexander Grischuk is a 3-time World Blitz champion. If you don't know who Grischuk is, look up Thug Life compilation. Chess, Grischuk. Thug Life will give you some random meme page. Grischuk, excellent player. Magnus plays a Moscow variation, bishop to b5. It's also called canal attack for some reason. I don't know, Venice. It's also just bishop b5 Sicilian. Now he plays c3 with a very straightforward idea to play d4. Knight f6, he defends the center pawn. The bishop goes back, and he's going to play the move d4, which is exactly what he does. So, e6, castle, bishop e7. The knight can't go here, so it goes here. That's pretty straightforward. And now Grischuk takes this moment to capture, because now the knight would have really preferred to be on the c3 square, but it already committed to go here. Black goes queen c7, attacking the bishop. Magnus doesn't blunder the bishop. Now, this position. Okay, we just watched Magnus put extreme pressure on Hikaru throughout the game. Extreme pressure. Okay? How will he win this one? Rook e1. Not rushing, improving. Rook fc8. You never know, this rook might be used over here. Knight f1. So you will notice that Magnus really likes to centralize his rook and then use the f1 square as a transfer point. He brought a bishop back there in the King's Indian. Now he's going to bring the knight over to g3, like this. And this knight could be a potential attacking piece in the future. And knowing Magnus games, just like he went rook a3, rook h3, it very well could be. Bishop f8, Grischuk waiting. h3, good waiting move. Maybe ideas like knight h2, maybe g4 in the future, etc. Maybe bishop e3. Bishop e3, and you don't want to go, you don't want to allow knight to g4. b4, okay. Now we see why h3 was in fact played. And Grischuk just advancing on the side of the board, making a little bit of progress. Magnus goes rook c1, the queen moves out of danger. Rook d1, knight to h2. Okay. These moves like h3, knight h2 are the makings of a kingside attack. So we have knight h5, knight g4, all sorts of different ideas to put pressure and break through on the kingside. Now let's see if Grischuk will be able to defend. a4, he goes for just queenside counterplay. Totally unfazed. Knight g4, looking to trade the knights. Knight, remove a kingside defender. Very natural move here is to take and bring the knight. Maybe he was a little worried Magnus would be hanging around with his queen, so he goes queen a5. Nice idea to defend the king side from the queen side. Knight f6, queen f3. Every move he makes is just so subtle. It's just a little subtle improvement, not rushing with anything. Bishop to e7, and now d5. One bishop move from Grischuk. He needed to be precise, and this move is a killer. Magnus puts his pawn on a square that is covered 1, 2, 3, 4 times. It is the most untouchable spot of the black position. Quite literally, every important piece that black has out is staring at d5. Magnus plays d5. And now Grischuk spends 40 seconds because he realizes something went terribly wrong. d5 is a huge problem. The point is, if you take it, knight f5 just opens up, I attack the bishop, and my attack is red hot. You can't move this pawn because I'm going to get my knight to f5. The problem is that if you don't move, I have now greatly softened up the position. The transformation of this d pawn for this pawn, which is basically what happened, right? Now we don't have an f7 and a d4 pawn, is about a 3 times evaluation shift. The rook is now open, this pawn is weak, the king lost some protection. How do we make progress in this position? We bring the queen back out of the pin, and we play e5. So we are no longer pinned. We are more than happy to completely give away a pawn, because if this pawn was taken, we would have bishop h7 check, winning the queen. So we have this. Now we remove the knight from its post. We return right back with the queen. Queen g6, queen h7 is an unstoppable, irresistible kingside attack. And in this position, just a few moves later, we pick up a bishop, and Grischuk resigns. Folks, Magnus won this game in 10 moves, okay? This was an equal position. He was just improving his pieces. He played deep. He quite literally played the perfect attack. He played d5 at exactly the right moment that it needed to be played, because then knight f5 would come with a tempo on the bishop over here. When black went back, he softened up the position, got access to g6, got access to a weak e6 pawn, got access to an open d file, which he immediately punished, the open d file. He removed the knight, then transferred his queen back over, creating knight h5 and queen g6 ideas, which were immediately utilized, by the way, and black had to leave his bishop here to not get mated, and that was the end of the game. It's just so ruthless. I don't know what else to say. Like, the way he wins these games is, I got 2 more for you. I got 2 more. So he won a game against Liu Shanglei, grandmaster from China, and then he also won a ridiculous game with black. He won all these games with white, but I wanted to save a game with black because it's just funny. Like, it's just funny. It's funny to me that some of the best players in the world, they just got no answers, you know? And when he's in a good mood and playing well, it's like, just get out of the way. Just get out of the way, all right? He played the bird. Bro, he played Liu Shanglei, who's like a 2660 player from China, like number 5 in the country, okay, in the entire country. I'm talking Wei Yi, Yu Yang Yi, Ding Liren. Liu Shanglei might be number 4. I mean, it's close. There's like Wang Yue, there's Wang Hao, there's a lot of very strong players. He plays the bird. The bird. He just develops, and then his opponent ends up giving him the center. So now we've turned it into a Sicilian defense with like Grand Prix attack with f4 and bishop b5. Black goes here, Magnus trades, and has the following position from the opening where he's already much better. He's already much better. The doubling of the d-pawns does not help black, even though it restricts white's knight. That's not even where the knight wants to go. White can always in the future play a4, a5, supporting queenside pressure. This bishop has no opposition, and e5 and f5 are ready whenever you want it. So look, knight d2, a4, he goes check. The idea of this check is to mess up the coordination of the black pieces. So now they're kind of standing around like this, right? Knight c4, etc. And now black is under some nasty pressure. And it looks like, you know, you're going to have to trade away the bishop here. Yeah. Well, before black is even able to castle, you have marched into the position, right? Black has to take. Now you take. And you're simply going to put the knight on d6. So black castles. You need to remove a little bit of pressure from your position. You take. The queen takes because he has an idea to checkmate you. And you simply go bishop g5 and bishop f6. You immediately exploit the weaknesses that you have created with your simple opening maneuver. By the way, b5 is impossible because of the move a4 that you played. You play queen d2 so that you don't get mated, but bishop f6 was better. Black goes bishop a6, so you have messed up very slightly. You go bishop f6 anyway, and now you kind of have to re-win this position. Bro, he played rook a3 again. He played rook a3 in the game I showed you 20 minutes ago. Rook a3, rook a... Bro, he did it twice. He did it twice in the same freaking recap. How do you even... And the idea is very straightforward. Bishop g7 and queen h6. Black has very limited ways to defend himself. He goes h5, which makes a lot of sense. Rook h3, and now he needs to play d3, which I can't even begin to explain. d3 is basically a move that demands white's attention in some capacity, and either you will allow the queen to be more active, or you will, you know, weaken your king, or you will have to trade the queen. Yeah, Liu Shanglei plays king h7. He does not find d3, and now after rook h5, literally just completely sacrificing a rook and playing queen g5 on the next move. Like bishop g7 and queen g5. This is game over. Because if you take, I play check, I check, and then I bring the rook to mate you. So you have to sack your queen. And the reason why this game is completely lost is because white is just up 2 pawns in a queen endgame versus rooks. Black's king is extremely weak. So even though you can get very limited counterplay, I mean, I just walk up the board with my queen and my pawn. Now, again, the position Magnus got from the opening was already so strong that within 5 moves, he was completely winning. He was completely winning. Knight d2, a4, he went check here because he understood he's going to take, and he's going to go e5, and he's going to go bishop g5, bishop f6. And he completely perfectly executed the entire plan. Had he just played bishop f6 here, and, you know, bishop a6 would have come, but then he would have just moved the knight, he would have just been totally winning. Maybe he didn't like something. I don't know what he didn't like. It doesn't matter. He won. Like, just total domination here. Bishop f6, rook f6. White plays queen d2, rook f1, rook f2, defends everything, b3, and just very comfortably wins the game. Like, maybe even h4, h5 if you need it. I have one more game. He didn't win every game with white. He also won some games with black. And this game was really funny. It was just a funny game. And it was against an extremely strong player in Andrei Yesipenko. So, let's go. Here we go. Ready? e4, c5. Of course, Sicilian defense. Knight f3, e6. He plays what's called the Khan variation, a6. It's a very interesting Sicilian. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this to lower rated players. I think you do need to be like high intermediate, like 16, 1700 to start playing openings like this. They're a little bit weird, but it's a good opening. Knight f6, queen c7, you kind of play like this. You put spikes for your pawns, so your opponent can't really get in. Your bishop goes here, or here, or here, or even here sometimes. b5, bishop b7. very flexible opening. So c4, knight c6, Yesipenko traded and went f4. So Magnus was like, okay, so he wants to go e5, right? I'll stop that. And I will activate my knight and my bishop to go to g4. Yesipenko played f5. So he blocks the bishop. Okay. Magnus says, I see. Bishop b4 check. The knight goes to c3. And now Magnus is like, well, I want to trade, but I also want to make sure this bishop is sort of blocked. And, you know, against the bishops, I prefer a closed position. So I should play c5. So he plays c5 now. He could have taken on c3 first, but okay, he plays c5. And Yesipenko goes g4. And, you know, the move g4 is interesting because you're very clearly showing to your opponent that you would like to take his head off. You want to win, g4. But Magnus is like, okay. What is... And Yesipenko is like, no, I'm going for it, all right? And I just found this next sequence very humorous. Because Magnus is like, yo, I never castled. Like, you're doing all this. You're doing all this. What if I just... And I go that way? And Yesipenko commits completely to the attack. Magnus is like, well, I'm pinning you, so why don't I go here, creating a threat on the pinned situation here, all right? Could have taken on c3. Queen c2. Now Magnus is like, well, your queen has to defend the pawn, so I'm going to trade off the bishop. And now I castle. So you did all this. What do you do now? Yesipenko's like, to be honest, Magnus, that's a great question. I'm going to castle too. I actually don't think I have that much of an attack. And Magnus is like, okay, the problem is I'm defending myself and putting great pressure on your king. And Yesipenko plays rook d2, and Magnus just plays rook takes d3. A man after my own heart, sacrificing the rook yet again, bulldozing the position. It doesn't matter what you take with, because my next move is bishop e4, or maybe knight e4, and you lose. You lose because your king is completely open. Queen d3, bishop e4, and Andrei Yesipenko quite literally resigned because his queen can no longer defend the pawn on c3. He could have kept the game going very slightly longer with this. It wouldn't have really mattered. Okay, Magnus would have probably taken, and put a rook on d8 and won the game in some 10, 15 moves. So, folks, that is the story of how Magnus Carlsen is approaching 3,400 Blitz on chess.com. He has 20.5 out of 22 in his recent tournaments, back-to-back tournament wins. Enjoying chess a lot, and if you are a follower of chess for, you know, a consistent period, he's back, you know. We didn't have Magnus content on this channel for 3 weeks. He's not playing too many over-the-board tournaments. But there he is. That's all I have for you today. Get out of here.